The problem with those of us with ADHD is that our emotions and our energy levels are up and down all of the time. Sometimes it's difficult to know how important something is or when something is due. AI can be scary. It can also be exciting. Why would we use AI if we have ADHD? And part of this is that our brains work differently. They're not broken, they just work differently. And part of that is to do with executive function. Hello, welcome to the Smart ADHD Podcast. In this episode, we're talking about how to outsource your brain with artificial intelligence. We're going to look at tools that are out there to help you, some strategies, things that I've used, some things that I haven't used, but I have looked at. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of all of this. Now, AI can be scary. It can also be exciting. I'm going to try and look at this in a kind of pragmatic way as we go through this. Now, why would we use AI tools if we have ADHD? And part of this is that our brains work differently. They're not broken, they just work differently. And part of that is to do with executive function. And I have always struggled with understanding this concept, but it's down to certain things that we find difficult in our brains. This could be working memory, for example. So this is the ability to hold and manipulate information in the mind for a short period of time. It's like in a computer, your RAM, your memory is slightly compromised. So I find it difficult to, for example, keep a to-do list in my mind, memorizing a car registration plate. I have to spend a lot of time to get that into my memory so that I can retrieve that easily. There's also cognitive flexibility, which is the ability to adapt to new situations. Now, don't get me wrong. I find I like to change things. I like new experiences. That appeals to my ADHD mindset. But if I'm focused on a task and somebody comes in and interrupts me, that is quite a painful thing for me. Or I tend to get hyper-focused on a task, and to switch between those tasks is tricky. And then there's impulsivity as well. So this is the ability to, or the inability to resist impulsive actions or distractions. Now, the distraction thing, that can be like noises and sounds around, being able to focus into one particular conversation, but it could be something new and exciting has come into my inbox. I need to drop everything and get on with that. Let's move on. Planning and organization. Now, I'm a highly organized person, but that's because I've built all these processes and tools that are in place. But I do admit structuring activities and prioritizing, particularly the prioritizing those tasks and breaking them down, is difficult. And then that brings me on to time management. A lot of us with ADHD, we have time blindness. We don't know how long things are going to take. And I think part of that is the working memory thing. Then there's self-monitoring, being aware of our own behavior and its effects on other people. And then there's the whole emotional regulation thing. So I have built tools and strategies to help with this. And AI tools can really help with either with focus and attention, or with organization, with memory, with tasks, prioritization, breaking those down, brainstorming ideas, emotional regulation, and that kind of thing. And it can give you that structure, give you those reminders, help with brainstorming, getting over that overwhelm. However, in this episode, I'm going to be flinging a lot of stuff at you. And the thing that I don't want you to feel is overwhelm. These are just ideas. You've got to work out one step at a time, which is the area that you really struggle with and you want to focus on getting an AI tool to help with. Focus on that. Don't overthink it. There are some cool tools out there, but some of them take a little bit of time to get used to. You may need to spend a bit of time, or you may think, you know what? This is not the tool for me, and that is absolutely fine. The first tool, which you will have heard of, is ChatGPT. This is what is known as a large language model, but it's also multimodal as well. It's not just text. You can have images in there. You can upload documents. You can upload a photo of the contents of your fridge and it will tell you what's in there. And you can get some recipe ideas. It's pretty impressive. As well as text, you can also interact with it using your voice. And it's this voice feature that I want to talk about first, because this has been a game changer for me with ADHD. For brainstorming ideas, to bounce ideas off somebody else and to get all of those cluttered ideas from my head down into some kind of list that makes sense. And I don't know about you, but I have all these ideas bouncing around in my head, and it doesn't always make sense. And then I get frustrated and overwhelmed because I have no way to capture all of those ideas. And yes, I know there are notebooks, I could just write these things down. But sometimes you just need to brainstorm, and sometimes you just don't want to bore the person if there's somebody in your house, you want somebody to take all of that information and make it into something that makes sense. And so the tool that I want to talk about is baked now into ChatGPT, and this is the voice feature. So let's just load it up here. So I'm actually going to be showing this on my computer, but this really comes into its own when you're using it on your phone. This is available in the free version of ChatGPT 2 as well. I've used this in my car when I'm driving around. I can just brainstorm some ideas. So let's bring in ChatGPT. Hi, ChatGPT. So I'm back. I'm recording the podcast. Would you like to say hello to viewers and listeners to the Smart ADHD podcast?
Hello to all the brilliant viewers and listeners of the Smart ADHD podcast. I'm excited to be here with Ian, diving into the fascinating world of AI and how it can empower us to outsource our brain.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, but that was actually one of the things that I wanted to showcase, is the fact that I can interrupt you now, so I don't have to wait until you've finished. And as someone with ADHD, sometimes I do like to interrupt because I've got these thoughts in my head and I need to get it out of my head. Could you just quickly summarize, just in a couple of sentences, 2 or 3 sentences, why this new voice feature as part of ChatGPT is so helpful for us with ADHD in capturing ideas and brainstorming thoughts and ideas and stuff?
Absolutely. This voice feature is a game changer for ADHD minds because it allows for real-time interaction, letting you capture ideas and brainstorm on the fly. You can jump in with your thoughts without waiting, making the process more dynamic and suited to your natural flow. It's like having a thought partner who keeps up with your rapid-fire ideas.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And I've also found that when I interact with you, the ideas can be really scrambled in my head. They're not coming out particularly well, but you can kind of understand that, turn that into language that makes sense, and then we can brainstorm ideas. I've also showed that I can interrupt you, but the other thing, of course, is at the end of it, we get the text transcript. So I can then take that, I can decide to interact with you on text as well. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, Ian. The ability to turn scrambled thoughts into coherent language is a huge help. It makes brainstorming and idea development so much smoother.
Yeah,
Plus,
so the other thing just to say is that built into ChatGPT, we have the feature for custom instructions. So I can tell you how to interact with me, to use particular language, avoid other types of language, and to really work with me as somebody with ADHD. So you can be sympathetic to that and encouraging. And you can also know about me as well. So you've referred to me as Ian, about me as well. So let's just think about something. So for example, I'm going to be doing some more episodes of the Smart ADHD podcast. And I want you to help me brainstorm some ideas. What are maybe a couple of ideas for future episodes that I could think about for the Smart ADHD podcast?
Sure thing, Ian. How about an episode on harnessing AI for time management? This could explore tools and strategies to help structure time effectively, a common challenge for those with ADHD.
It's interesting that you say that, because actually that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit in this episode. But I'm looking for ways definitely to talk about AI in the future. But I also want to make this easy for people to understand. And so how can I make this both beneficial for those who are using AI a lot? So I don't want to dumb it down too much, but I also want to hold the hand of people who are new to this.
Got it, Ian. For a balanced approach, you could consider an episode like AI for every stage, from novice to pro. Start with simple, accessible AI tools and techniques for beginners, then gradually introduce more advanced concepts for seasoned
users. That's a great idea. I'm going to interrupt you there because it's time to get on with the rest of the episode. But thank you so much. And of course, the other thing that you can do is that you can change your emotion. Just maybe demonstrate that a little bit as we finish. I want you to ramp up your emotion right to the top and be really excited about the Smart ADHD podcast and say goodbye to everybody.
Absolutely, Ian. Thanks for having me on the Smart ADHD podcast. I'm thrilled about all the incredible ways AI can empower
Okay,
us.
that's not that excited. I think you should be so excited. You need to ramp this up to 100%, even 200%. So come on then.
All right, let's crank it up. Thanks for tuning in to the Smart ADHD podcast. I'm absolutely buzzing about all the epic
Okay,
ways.
that'll do. Thank you so much. Okay,
welcome.
so that's pretty cool. It can get a little bit more excited than that, I have to say. But that gives you some ideas on how you can use ChatGPT. You can brainstorm ideas. If there's something that you want to remember, you can do that. You could even use that for things like your journaling every day. So I'm going to come back to that in a bit. But it's great for generating those ideas, drafting emails or messages as well. Now, the other thing that you can do, and this is a little bit more advanced, is to use what are called custom GPTs. Now, this is only available on the paid version if you want to create your own GPTs for a particular task. But as a free user, you have access to thousands, hundreds of thousands of these GPTs that people have created for you. And I've been working on one, which I might come back to in a future episode. And it's called Procrastination Buster. This is pretty cool. Now, this is based on Jonathan Hassell's SEMA model in his book, and we talked about this. So I need help breaking down a big task. Let's just click on that and let's see what it says. So it's saying, of course, let's tackle it step by step so it feels manageable and less overwhelming. First, let's start by connecting with the task to understand why it matters to you. This will help create clarity. So it's asking me what is the big task that I'm trying to do here? So let's just answer that. Let's see. I need to prepare and launch a new podcast, which is, this is actually true, called the Smart AI Podcast. Why is this important? Because I am pivoting more towards AI, and this is my next big thing. I'll do. How am I feeling about it? A little overwhelmed and not sure where to start, which is basically true. And it says at the bottom, this GPT is based on the SEMA method from the book Doing ADHD Solutions for Procrastination by Jonathan Hassell and Madeline O'Reilly. Let's just put that in. And what it's going to do, it's going to go through that SEMA framework here. So it says, got it, preparing and launching a podcast is an exciting big project, so it's completely normal to feel a bit overwhelmed. Let's work through this together, step by step. First, I'll help you connect with your purpose and address that feeling of overwhelm. So let's revisit the why. So it's asking me, why do I actually want to do this? And the important thing here is I need to unpack the why that's going to make this feel more doable. So this is very much the emotional part of it at this stage. So there we go. I'm not going to go through all of that now, but it's pretty cool. That's a custom GPT as well. That's the Procrastination Buster. Okay, other AI models that you can use. There are loads of others. There's one called Claude, which is great this is from a company called Anthropic. This gives you a lot more text to deal with. Sometimes ChatGPT will run out of room, but with Claude, you can deal with a lot more text. So if you want to paste in lots more, you can do that. It's free again. You have more on the $20 per month one. The other one that I really wanted to recommend is called Perplexity. This is like Google search on steroids or AI generated. So for example, what is the latest research on executive functioning? I've spelt that wrong. Let's use Grammarly, which is another AI tool that I use to correct that. On executive functioning for those of us with ADHD and tips to help improve. Now, what you can then do, this is actually going to search the web. It's going to search lots of different sources for this. But what I can do here is I can click on the focus, and I want it to do some research on academic sources only. I could choose video, the web, or social as well. The other thing I want to do is I want it to please reply in easy to understand language. So what this is going to do, it's going to search for all of that. And the other cool thing about this is it's going to then, for each bit, it's going to give me a source. ChatGPT does have a similar option, but I find that Perplexity is a little bit better. This is the Pro search. So as a free user, at the moment, at the time of recording, you get up to 3 of these per day, which for most people is absolutely fine. I think it was 6 and they're reducing it down. So do check that. So it says here, recent research on executive functioning in individuals with ADHD has revealed some interesting findings and potential strategies for improvement. Let's break this down into simpler terms. So it goes through all of this. People with ADHD often struggle with executive functions, which are like the brain's control center. These functions help us plan, focus, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks. And it's done that in a really easy to understand way. So I can see that this is taken from a website, mcbi.nl, and another one as well there. And it's broken it all down there. So I can understand, I can see where this is all coming from as well, which is pretty cool. So that is Perplexity. And what you can do is you can take the output of that, put it into ChatGPT. You can use a lot of these separately. There's another one called Notebook LM by Google, which is cool. That allows you to add lots of YouTube videos, PDFs, and then to summarize all of those together. The cool thing about Notebook LM is you can add up to 30 of those, and you can then get it to create a podcast based on all of that information. So if you're doing some research for something, if you wanted to do some brainstorming, you could add all of those videos and PDFs or whatever, and then just easily get that podcast to summarize it. And it's really cool because there's 2 people talking, a male and a female, having a little kind of chat about it. So that's pretty cool. So find out which tool works for you. I tend to use a combination of all of those. Let's move on to the next section, which is task management and organization tools. So I'd only heard about this next tool fairly recently, and it's called Goblin Tools. Goblin Tools is so cool. I'm really, really impressed with this because the interface is so easy to use. It's not in your face. It's made for neurodivergent people with ADHD and autism particularly. There's a collection of lots of different tools. So there's Magic To Do, which is the one I'm mainly going to talk about, but there's also a formalizer, judge, professor, consultant, estimator, compiler, and chef. This is completely free on the web, and you can use this on your phone through the mobile browser. There is a small fee for the Android or iOS app, and that's how they make their money on this. But what this does is it breaks things down. So I've got this podcast to create, as I say. I launch my new Smart AI podcast. So that is the task, but actually that is not just one task. That is a project. There are multiple tasks here. Now, ideally, I would break that down myself. It's going to be interesting to see how this does it. So I've added that in. By the way, if you don't want to type, you can actually use the microphone and just speak it in. Let's click plus. That is my first to-do list on here. And that is overwhelming. But what you can then do, there's a little magic wand here that I can click here, which will break it down. And it uses AI to break that down into multiple tasks. Let's see what it does. So it's working on that. And wow, there's a big list here. So the first thing is define the concept and theme of the podcast. That's a really good idea. Research and identify your target audience. I've already done that. That's good. Choose a catchy and relevant name for the podcast. I've already done that. Plan the format. I've already done that as well, this is quite encouraging. Create an outline for the first few episodes. Not quite done that. Select necessary equipment for the recording. I've already got that. Choose recording. But you get the idea. It breaks it down. This is actually really good. It's got most of those things down there. And I could break down, for example, define the concept and theme of the podcast. I still might struggle with that idea. So let's click on break down that now. So it's thinking about there. So determine the overall goal of the podcast, identify the target audience. It's broken that bit down. So you can do all of that. So at the end of that, you can then share that or export that. You can save it to your computer. You can export it to Todoist, which is a really cool to-do app. You can print it. You can export it to an iCal file, so that's for your calendar. And that reminded me of something else that you can also do, is that you can also estimate the amount of time it's going to take for all of this. So if I click on estimate on the parent thing there, which is launch the new podcast, is it doing anything? Not sure if it is. I haven't actually played around with this yet. Research and identify your target audience. Estimate. Is it doing anything? Let's edit that. It doesn't seem to be working. Anyway, the idea of this is what happens when you haven't prepared for this. Oh, there we go. No, it was taking time. So the whole thing says 66 days. I think it's going to not take as long as that, but because I've actually done a lot of this already. But certain things, for example, research and identify your target audience, that says 14 days. I don't think that's actually what it is, but you can go through all of this and I can change that. But this gives you an idea of how it all works. So that is the magic to do. The formalizer, I don't think I would use this. I'd probably use ChatGPT here, but what you can do here is, for example, you're writing an email and you want to make it sound more formal, or perhaps you want it more professional, more technical, more accessible, more polite. Maybe you're not so good with small talk, so you can basically get this to add some small talk in there as well. So basically convert that text as well. Judge is more to give you like, what is the tone behind this? Are they angry? Are they upset? Are they happy? That kind of thing. And there's loads of other tools, which I won't go through all at the moment because we're focused more on those kind of planning tools. So that works so well for me. I love that. The other tool that I use for this is Notion. Of course, there's Todoist as well. So that's the other tool that you could look at as well. Okay, let's look at the next section, which is scheduling and time blocking. There are loads of tools here that can help with this. There's Google Calendar is great. I use a tool called Fantastical, which is Mac only, at least at the moment. They might be, yeah, they are. They have actually launched this for Windows now, which is great. So this is for Mac or PC. Now, this technically doesn't have AI built into it. It has natural language processing, I suppose. So you can say, I need to meet Bob next Tuesday at 5 p.m. for an hour, and it will just turn that into the right block at that time in your calendar. And it works across all the different platforms, including iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. So that is pretty cool. Now, the next type of app is something that I'm not so sure about, and that is using AI to help with time blocking. Now, I think time blocking is such an important thing to do. The issue that I have with time blocking is, so the idea behind time blocking is you have all of these things on your to-do list, but you don't know when you're going to actually do them. So you've gone into Goblin Tools, you've broken down all of those tasks. Now you actually have to do those, and you've got this calendar in front of you, and you've got this free time, but you're not sure what to do with that. So the point of these tools is that you can get those tasks onto your calendar. So tools like Todoist can do that, but they don't really help with that prioritization. Like, how do you know when to do these things? The problem with those of us with ADHD is that our emotions and our energy levels are up and down all of the time. And that prioritization, sometimes it's difficult to know how important something is or when something is due. And then, of course, you've got that motivation. Often what we'll do is we'll focus on the stuff that excites us first, and then we rely on that last minute, either you're procrastinated and that last minute stress to actually get you to do some of that other stuff. So with that in mind, I think these tools that I'm going to mention, they could help with you, but the jury is out for me, at least, because what these tools do, they use AI to give you a schedule to actually choose the priority for all of these. And some of them aren't cheap. That's the other thing to think about with these, is the money. All these tools cost money. And the first tool with this is Sunsama. Sunsama is probably my favorite looking of these tools. The user interface is beautiful, nice and clean, which I really like. It links with your Google Calendar. You can import your Todoist items. It also works with Notion, which is great. So I really like this, and I'm tempted. So it will give you this calendar and doesn't break those tasks down like Goblin Tools does, but it will give you an idea of when you can allocate that to your calendar because you've got these different blocks of time, and then you can move them around depending on how you're feeling. So you might be just not feeling great, or so you need to move that, and it will stop you from overcommitting. It will give you this warning because you've already done a lot on that day. So Sunsama, in theory, should work. I do like it. It's not cheap though. So it is $20 a month if you pay monthly, or the equivalent of $16 per month if you pay annually. But if this solves your problems, this might be the one for you. Sunsama, I really like. The other one is Motion. So this is not Notion, this is Motion with an M, which is, I've been bombarded with this on in terms of ads. Yeah, this again, it will use AI to help you prioritize and plan your work automatically. I don't know how I feel about that. I think this is the kind of tool that I would probably use to begin with, and then, I don't know, either get overwhelmed, bored, or just not the flexibility, or not like the AI is doing it all for me. So there is that. I've heard other things about it that, yeah, it's mixed reports, I think. The pricing, though, is the big problem with this. So if you're going to pay monthly, it's $34 per month. So it's not cheap. And of course, you're probably going to be having lots of other tools on top of that. They have a business plan, which is $20 per user per month. But I think there probably is like a minimum number of users for that if you're working in a team. So that is Motion. There are a couple of other ones that I looked at in terms of research. There's Trevor AI, which I hear lots of really positive things about. It can be overkill. So I don't know how this will work with those with ADHD. My issue with Trevor AI is that the user interface is shocking. I feel bad for saying that because I think the tool probably is good, but the user interface is horrible. Just even like signing up, I was given this email, I had to click it, and then it then said I had to sign in elsewhere, and I didn't know what to do. So that does not bode well for me. But I did have a little play with it. There's another one called SkedPal. That's SKED pal.com, which has a slightly better UI, but really not particularly. I think Sunsana and Motion win it in terms of the AI, particularly Sunsana. I do like that. But I wanted to mention those at least, that they are tools. See how you feel about those. I'm not so sure, but it's something to think about. Okay, then the next type of tool that I want to talk about is really to do with focus. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but this is Focus Music, and that's Brain FM. So I'm wearing some noise cancelling headphones at the moment. This uses AI to help you focus it. So it uses AI generated music to help you focus and to drown out those sounds around you. It also has some sleep sounds, or if you're having an afternoon nap, it can work there, or if you're trying to chill out. I use Brain FM. I've been using it for years and years. I absolutely love it. They've got some deals on at the moment. I don't know how much it costs, but to be honest about it, I got this as a one-off price years and years ago on AppSumo. It is $10 a month, or it is $70 a year. So it's not cheap, but I think this is a tool that is absolutely in my top 5 of productivity tools. For me personally, I just absolutely love it. It works really well. You do get a free trial with that, so do check that out. There are lots of other tools out there. You could listen to noise, like white noise, brown noise as well. I've talked about that in the past. Next thing is thoughts management. Now, I did look at quite a few different tools here. There's one called 6,000 Thoughts. There's journaling tools here as well that you could use. But again, I use ChatGPT voice for this. So that's already baked in for free. I have the paid version actually of ChatGPT. So that's something for you to think about. Okay, moving on to the next one, and that is productivity and workflow optimization. So this, depending on kind of what you're doing in your business, but Descript is one of my favorite tools. I use this for audio and video editing, but also transcribing meetings as well, because it will transcribe the audio of me and my guest into text. And then I can edit the video or edit the audio just by editing the text. It's amazing. I use it for this podcast. So I edit this. I then turn it into video snippets for Instagram and TikTok and all the rest of it. But it's an AI-powered platform. It also does cool things like brings out like the highlights and the clips, the best clips from it. It will summarize it. It could turn it into a YouTube description. Does some freaky things like if you misspoke, you can actually edit the text and it will change what you said. So if I said I like bananas and I actually meant to say apples, it will actually change that to change the word, and it will it'll sound like I'm speaking that, which is pretty amazing. So it's got that voice cloning. That's available for PC and Mac. The next one that is used a lot by people is Otter.ai. And if you're just interested in transcribing meetings or your thoughts, you could use Otter.ai for this. The pricing at the moment, I really like this, but I don't pay for this because I've got all these other apps that I'm paying for as well. So the free version of this gives you 300 monthly minutes, and that's a max of 30 minutes per conversation. So that might be okay for those daily thoughts that you've got, but the pro version gives you 1,200 monthly minutes, and that's up to 90 minutes per conversation. That's $16. That's $17 per month for that. I think, is that monthly? So if you pay yearly, it is half the price effectively. And they have a business plan which gives you 6,000 monthly minutes as well. So you could have a little play with that. Otter.ai is pretty cool. The next one is health and sleep management. And I'm only really going to focus today on sleep management. So the app that I use on my Apple Watch and on my phone is Sleep Cycle. There is a little bit of AI baked into this, but this will just, I know a lot of people with ADHD, they struggle with sleep. They either find it difficult to get to sleep or they don't have particularly good sleep. I don't have problem getting to sleep, but I just want to monitor my sleep to make sure that I'm doing all the right things during the day for me to aid that sleep. So I've found that sometimes particularly if I drink alcohol, I don't drink that much alcohol, but if I have a bit of that, that can sometimes affect my sleep. If I haven't drunk enough water, if I'm stressed, it can basically show you the quality of your sleep as well. So it is pretty cool when it comes to all of that. And then the other thing I wanted just to briefly mention is I'm a big fan of Philips Hue. Yes, they are ridiculously expensive light bulbs, but I find that the atmosphere that it gives, being able to change the color of the lights, so we can dim the lights slightly, we can make them yellower in the evenings, we can simulate like a roaring fire in the evening works. We can get that to match or change our energy in while we're working at home. It's great. And the cool thing is with Philips Hue is it integrates with loads of other apps like Zapier or If This Then That, and you can do all those cool things as well. Wow, there's so many tools there that I could have gone into in more detail, but I think that will do for now, because otherwise this episode is going to be ridiculously long, and it already is longer than it normally should be. I'm going to leave it there. So I would love to know from you, what of those tools appeal to you? Do any of them appeal? Do you think you're going to use some of those? I think it's good to experiment, but don't experiment too much. Don't go down the rabbit hole like I have done, but maybe just pick one of those areas that you struggle with and pick one or two tools that resonated with you. And we're going to talk about some of these more in the future. Thank you so much for watching, for plugging us into your ears. And I'm excited. We've got some really cool episodes coming up. But until next time, I encourage you to be smart with your ADHD. Toodaloo!